I'm Sarah. I'm the CEO of Dynamic Boards, and today I'm chatting to Mo. So Mo is a non-exec with Newtide Homes and Brighter Futures. Mo, tell us what's your journey been like to become a non-exec?
I think it was long and hard before I found dynamic boards. I used to crawl through a number of less user-friendly sites. And to be quite honest, I didn't get the updates quickly, and I also didn't always get the details I needed. I found dynamic boards through LinkedIn, and then I went to the site, and it was quite easy. And the other thing I really appreciated was the newsletters, because they sort of give you like a kick, even if you haven't done it, whereby you then see, oh, these number of roles are live, like you could get on it. So it's just sort of like as a, what would I call, executive coach, also pushing you on at least. um
Good.
so that's how I found it. Then I applied to 5 roles on dynamic boards, and I got in shortlisted for interview for 3, and I got 2, but it wasn't back to back. It was one, then the next one, and then the third one. So that's how it went.
Mo, that is a phenomenal stats. Like speaking to lots of other people, I think people will be wondering what was your experience before this, because a lot of people could apply for 5 roles and not get 3 interviews. So tell us about what you were doing before.
I used to work in consulting. I still work in consulting, but I worked in tech for a bit, for about 1.5 years. Then I went back to working in consulting. So to be fair, I had some experience and background around it. But I didn't, the sector I was primarily looking at was property.
Yeah.
And the only experience I have in property was in a real estate tech company that I had worked for. So it was quite different from what they needed. But what helped was I did speak to a number of non-exec directors, and they gave feedback on the structuring and what they want to see in
Mhm.
the letters and when they are doing interviews. So that was really useful in terms of, you have to say your story. And I think the key thing is show not tell. It seems like it's really basic, but I think we forget sometimes. Like when you're writing, particularly the cover letter, because it's really important, and you try to say what you're about, but you actually should show it and say, this is what I did, and this was the impact. So
Mhm.
that was really useful for me. Then also the other feedback I got was about actually saying, okay, these are the things I could do, but how do I then apply it to your context? What
Yeah.
viewpoint do I bring on board? And how will that help you achieve your goal? So I would always recommend like going through the financials of the company before writing even the cover letter, not even before the interview, because you can then find some salient points there that
Yeah.
you can pick out, particularly in the notes. That's when you
Mm.
really know what happens. Then another good place for digging off information is Glassdoor. If you just go to
Mm.
employee reviews, they are, for whatever reason, they are quite detailed. I'm not sure people are allowed to
Yeah.
write some of the things they write there. But I found them really useful in terms of strategy. It gives you more color and context. So maybe sort of the management challenges. So when you do get to shortlisted for an interview, that always helps, because people are like, how did you know about that? And it's always a good conversation entry point into it.
Mo, that is a brilliant tip. I remember doing that for a non-exec role that I went for, and their glass door was quite scathing.
Yeah.
You know, people write glass door reviews after they've left a company.
Yeah.
So they and I think if you're really happy, you don't bother writing one a lot of the time. So the people who've written them have problems with the company. So they tend
Yeah.
to just expose all of the challenges to the culture, to the remuneration, to the packages, to whatever. They've written it all in Glassdoor. So if you want to know what challenges a company's facing, and it's big enough, needs
It's
to be of a
really
certain
big enough.
scale,
Yeah, I completely agree.
then
I
Glassdoor's got
don't
it.
know why it's allowed, but sure. It's helped me, to be honest.
Yeah, that's really helpful. That's such a good tip. Loads
Yeah.
of people wouldn't think of that, so that's useful. And then what about the interviews themselves? How so you've gone through interview processes 3 times and you've got 2 roles, so you've clearly got great success at that. How did you find them?
You have to be prepared for them. Like, I didn't. The good thing was, I think because they were my first interviews, I didn't take them for granted. So I spent a lot of time sort of doing like mock interviews with my friends when they were not available. I use Snapchat. Like, it is easier to record yourself then you replay it, and sometimes you see your answers, because there are other things that when you're responding to questions, you tend to forget the filler silences. And most people think it could, if you're then listening to it, you can then say, okay, it might seem that you don't know what you're saying, but you're thinking. So for me, for that process, I then realized that what I had to say was, I just need a couple of minutes to structure my thoughts, or I repeat the question back to the person while I'm thinking about the actual structure to take.
Yeah.
And literally, some things I learned from my first interview process in undergrad still help.
Yeah.
STAR, situation, task, action, result.
Yeah.
Like, always go through that. Even when they're asking, how would you contribute to the board? And you don't know, you can then give a hypothetical situation, task, action, and result. Because there's one feedback I got from a friend, and it was like, people are not really good with facts. They won't
Yeah.
remember the exact number, but they remember stories. So if you
Yeah.
put a bit of storytelling into it, it really helps.
Yeah. Amazing. That's such good practical tips, Bo. Thank you. And I know that you did an MBA at the University of Oxford. Do you think that's helped you in becoming a non-exec?
Yeah, I think it definitely has helped, because people also want to know like the level of engagement you've had with boards.
Mhm.
Because some of the things are very strategic. And I guess that's also where I had an advantage, because I work in consulting. So are you able to break down the issues directly there? And can you take a macro view of the sector? Because that's a lot of what you're going to be doing as a board. For the property sector, for example, what does higher interest rates mean for the sector? Or if the regulator is changing a rule, what does it mean down for your specific firm? So I think having that sort of worldview is always good, and those basic business skills to be able to evaluate a lot of the reports that you're
Yeah.
doing, because they throw a lot of things that you like. If you don't have a finance background, for example, like trying to make sense of the draft budget is going to be hard. So I think just upskilling on some of those things would really help.
Thank you, Mo. And how have you found your experience on the board since you've been there? Which one did you join first?
I joined Brighter Futures first,
Yeah.
then I joined Newtide. Oh, I found it really interesting because it's a completely different view set. I've always wanted to be on the other side, because a lot of the work I've had to do is prepare reports for boards.
Mhm.
So it was good to see how they receive it and what they evaluate on it. And I think there's also a fine line that I've come to learn is the best advice actually is, I can't remember who said it to me, but I think it was one of the board chairs. Like, think of yourself like the queen, and in this case, the king. You can only advise and warn. You actually can't do anything, because you're to provide oversight and strategic advice. You're not operational. And I think sometimes board members want to be a bit more active, because it's also your name, signing off the reports, but you have to actually allow the management to do their work.
Mhm.
And that's quite difficult sometimes, because you see it from, oh, I can see this thing, this is how you should do it, particularly if you had some experience in that sector, but that's not your job. Um,
Yeah.
you really have to understand that bit.
Yeah. Knowing when to hold back. And how did you find like the board meetings, the structure, getting used to that from the first meeting off?
Oh, it's quite different. I think in all of them, I'm probably the youngest person in the room.
Yeah.
So that's quite fun. But I think they've come to appreciate my own insights in how I look at things, because it's quite different, particularly around areas to do with digital and finance. I see things from a completely different point of view, and that's what you want in a board. And you sort of learn from other people, because there's one of the boards, there's a retired police officer there,
Amazing.
and he's quite helpful in when we have to look at compliance and regulation issues.
Mhm.
And very structured about it, and he would say, maybe you want to look at it this way. So it that's part of it. You have to learn from the people you are working with on the board, and then also contribute to the board. Then part of also what you do is how can you actually help the company? Some of it is by being an ambassador. Like you can know people who could potentially help, particularly if it's around fundraising or just business connections. Or you could actually say, I found this resource that you think would be useful.
Mhm.
Um, for you. For me, it's like because I used to work in tech, I know a lot of non-profit resources that they have and free subscriptions and all of that. So I'm always quite happy to say, look at this, you might meet the requirements or not, and it'll help you bring down some amount of your expenditure on software. So it's those practical things, the easy to do things. But the other thing is that you just have to make the time. The board reports, there's no way around it. They are lengthy, and there's a reason they are lengthy. And I think that's usually the hard part. Most people want to do a quick scan and then just go in. But the thing that you have to remind yourself is one, when you signed up to it, you made a promise that you'll find the time to actually go through it. And it's because I'm a consultant, I also know that it's in the notes or the tiny bits. That's where you want to actually hone in on things. It's never the overall indicators or all of that. And that's your job also, oversight. So those are the things that you want to bring out. So that requires a bit of planning around your time.
Yeah.
Um,
And how have you found that fitting it alongside your work?
it's hard. It's quite hard, but you just, for me, I've had to do it. And sometimes it means that you have to make sacrifices, like between either going out or having to reschedule a work meeting. And for me, I'm always quite upfront with my clients that I do have these commitments.
Mhm.
I will try to work around it on those days. It might mean sometimes because Brighter Futures is based in Stoke-on-Trent. So I always have to get a train there. So most times I have to work on the train there
Mhm.
and train back. But it's also a commitment that I've made and I've gotten to know the team and the staff because that's another point I think that it's really key. Like if you're the board of a business, it doesn't mean just showing up on Teams or on a board meeting. You also have to get to know the staff and try to engage. So I always try to set aside one day, no matter how hard it is, to actually go down there to meet the team. And most companies would be willing to organize that for you if you express interest. So that's also for you to, on your side, to push for so that you
Yeah.
actually know what it looks like.
Yeah, I think there's definitely there's a tension in that, isn't it? Organizations don't know how much to expect of you. They know that you're coming to board meetings, you're going to read the papers, there's going to be an element of other aspects, but I think some organizations don't want to keep asking you in case they frustrate you or call on too much of your time. But there's a
Yeah,
balance there, because if you haven't met any of the staff and you don't really see the operations of the organization, then that's a challenge as well. So I think you're totally right, Mo. Volunteering sometimes, saying, do you mind if
yeah,
I come in and have a tour, have a chat, or book in meetings with a couple of people. I think that's a fantastic way to approach it.
yeah. And
So
also networking opportunity too. Sorry.
yeah, definitely. Um, so Mo, if anyone was thinking about applying for their first non-exec role, what would you say to them?
I would say go for it, like, but do the homework. Like read the finance document. Any another easy thing is just go to Google News and put in their name and you'd see everything that comes out. But also do your due diligence before you join a board. Because if you join a housing provider and, for example, they are downgraded, you then become liable. So I think you have to really put the work in. It's less, what I've learned is less about quantities, not the amount you apply for. It's more about the quality. So try, because they're quite, most times they're a bit clear on the person specification that they are looking for. You see digital experience or lived experience, or it could even be finance background or customer service experience. So you try to see which of those buckets you fit into and try to align your profile and your CV towards that. And I think that it's a long process, but you also have to be committed to it.
Yeah, and you think it's worthwhile?
Of course it is. It can be you gotta sit at the table, and that's always what's that saying? If it's either you're at the table or you're on the menu, so you'd rather be on the table.
I love that, Mo. Brilliant. And have you enjoyed it? Have you enjoyed being a non-exec?
Yeah, I have, because like for one of the board roles, they were redesigning a process, and I have ADHD, and I know one of my pet peeves is how online forms are designed. I tend to just abandon them halfway. And they were trying to do something. I was like, that's not going to work. Like, if it was me, I would not. And I think it's those little things, for me, that matter, and just being able to help in that area, because I don't think, if I hadn't said that, anybody on that particular call would have thought about it from that point of view. They were trying to optimize for something else, but in doing
Mm,
that, they were also making it difficult for another subsegment of people. So if I could just literally help one more person, I think that's okay. That's a good day's job.
amazing. Amazing. Yeah, so you're representing people with ADHD on the board as well.
Yes.
That's brilliant, Mo. Thank you so much. And for anyone watching, I hope this has encouraged you and inspired
Yeah.
you, hearing Mo's story, to think about whether you might be able to apply for non-exec roles. As Mo said, he found both these roles on dynamic boards. We advertise loads and loads of roles, over 1,000 a year, in all sorts of sectors. Mo's got roles in housing boards, and we have lots of roles from the housing sector, but also from other sectors as well. So please do check it out, have a look. It's totally free to access and join. Mo,
Yeah.
thank you for your time. Have a good rest of your day.
And thank you, Sarah. Like I said, I wouldn't have this job, like, if not for you. So well done, and please keep up the good work.
Thank you, Mo.